The mining station on Kepler 442b hummed with activity as massive excavation machines tore through the planet's crystalline surface. Marcus Chun wiped sweat from his brow as he supervised the morning shift, his weathered hands gripping the control tablet that monitored 17 different drilling operations across the vast site. The alien world's twin suns cast an orange glow over the landscape, making everything look like it was perpetually bathed in sunset. Foreman Chun. "We've got a problem in Sector 7, crackled the voice through his comm unit. It was Rodriguez, one of his most reliable operators. Marcus frowned and adjusted his hard hat. "What kind of problem? Equipment failure?" "No, sir, it's—" "Well, you're going to want to see this yourself. We found something in the cavern system we just broke through." The drive to Sector 7 took Marcus through winding paths carved between towering rock formations. The mining operation had been running for 3 years now, extracting rare earth elements that were worth their weight in platinum. Back on Earth, they'd encountered plenty of interesting geological formations, even some fossilized remains of ancient sea creatures. But Rodriguez's tone suggested this was different. When Marcus arrived at the excavation site, he found his crew standing in a semicircle around the entrance to a newly opened cavern. Their faces were a mixture of curiosity and concern. The massive drilling machine sat silent, its operator having shut it down the moment they'd broken through into the underground space. "Show me what we're dealing with," Marcus said. Grabbing a portable light array from the equipment truck, Rodriguez led him to the cavern entrance, which yawned like a dark mouth in the rock face. The opening was large enough to drive a truck through, and cool air flowed out from the depths below. Marcus activated his light array and stepped inside, Rodriguez close behind him. The cavern was enormous, stretching far beyond what their lights could illuminate. Crystalline formations jutted from the walls and ceiling, some as thick as tree trunks. But it wasn't the geological features that made Marcus stop in his tracks. It was the sound, a low, mournful keening echoed through the cavern, unlike anything he'd ever heard. It was clearly coming from a living creature, but it didn't sound like any of the native wildlife they'd cataloged on Kepler 442b. The sound was intelligent somehow, filled with a pain that transcended species barriers. "There," Rodriguez whispered. Pointing his flashlight toward the far end of the cavern, Marcus followed the beam of light and felt his breath catch. In the deepest part of the cavern, partially hidden behind a cluster of crystal formations, lay what could only be described as a dragon. The creature was massive, easily 30 feet from nose to tail, with scales that caught their lights and reflected them back in deep purples and blues. But what made Marcus's heart clench was the state she was in. The dragon's wings were badly broken, twisted at unnatural angles and clearly causing her immense pain. Around her, moving weakly in the dim light, were 3 much smaller versions of herself. Dragonlings, Marcus realized. They couldn't have been more than a few feet long, their scales still soft and not fully developed. "My God," Marcus breathed. "How long do you think they've been down here?" "Based on the rock formation we just broke through, could be weeks. Maybe longer." Rodriguez kept his voice low, as if afraid to disturb the injured creature. The mother dragon had noticed their presence, her large, intelligent eyes fixed on them, and Marcus could see both wariness and desperation in her gaze. She was protecting her young, but she was also dying. The broken wings weren't her only injury. Marcus could see deep gashes along her flanks, and her breathing was labored. "Sir, what do we do?" Rodriguez asked. "The company protocols say we should report any alien life forms to the xenobiology department and wait for instructions." Marcus studied the scene before him. The dragon was clearly in agony, and her babies were weak from what appeared to be lack of food. Company protocols would take days, maybe weeks to sort through. By then, it would be too late. "Get me Dr. Sarah Kim on the comm," Marcus said firmly. "She's the closest thing we have to a veterinarian on this rock." "But the protocols, I don't care about protocols right now. That creature is suffering, and her babies are going to die if we don't act fast." Marcus turned to face his crew member. "In my 30 years of working sites like this, I've learned that sometimes you have to do what's right, not what's written in a manual." While Rodriguez made the call, Marcus slowly approached the dragon. She watched his every movement, her head raised defensively despite her obvious pain. When he got within 20 feet, she let out a low warning growl that rumbled through the cavern like thunder. "Easy, girl," Marcus said softly, stopping where he was. "I'm not here to hurt you. I want to help." The dragon tilted her massive head, studying him. Marcus had always been good with animals, and he sensed that, despite the obvious species difference, some universal principles applied. Trust had to be earned slowly and carefully. He sat down on the cavern floor, making himself less threatening. The dragon's growl faded to a wary rumble. Her dragonlings, weak but curious, peeked out from behind their mother's protective bulk. "Foreman Chun," Rodriguez called from the cavern entrance. "Dr. Kim is on her way. She said to tell you that you're either crazy or the bravest man on Kepler 442b. "Probably both," Marcus muttered, never taking his eyes off the dragon for the next hour. Marcus sat perfectly still, occasionally speaking in low, soothing tones to the injured creature. Gradually, her defensive posture relaxed. The dragonlings became bolder, one even venturing a few steps toward him before scurrying back to its mother's side. When Dr. Kim arrived with her emergency medical kit, she took one look at the situation and immediately understood the gravity of it. "Those wing fractures are severe," she said quietly, studying the dragon from a safe distance. "And she's clearly been without food for an extended period. The stress alone could kill her. Can you help her?" Marcus asked. Dr. Kim was quiet for a long moment. "I'm not a xenobiologist, Marcus. Everything I know about anatomy is based on Earth creatures. But pain is universal, and I can see she's in agony. Those wings need to be set and stabilized, and she needs nutrients fast. Then let's get to work." "It's not that simple. She weighs several tons, and those claws could slice through our equipment like paper. One wrong move and we're all dead." Marcus looked at the dragon, who was watching their conversation with what seemed like understanding. "She knows we're trying to help. Look at her eyes. That's intelligence, not just instinct." Dr. Kim studied the creature more carefully. "You might be right. But even if she cooperates, I don't have equipment designed for something her size. We're talking about improvising medical procedures on a completely unknown species." "Then we improvise. What choice do we have?" The next several hours were a careful dance of trust and medical intervention. Dr. Kim prepared a powerful sedative cocktail, estimating dosages based on the dragon's apparent mass and comparing it to large Earth mammals. Meanwhile, Marcus worked on gaining more of the dragon's trust. He noticed that the dragonlings were clearly hungry and weak. On a hunch, he had Rodriguez bring some of the high-protein emergency rations from their camp. When he offered small pieces to the babies, the mother dragon watched intently but didn't interfere. The dragonlings devoured the food eagerly. "She's letting us feed her young," Dr. Kim observed. "That's a significant sign of trust." "Or desperation," Marcus replied. "But I'll take it." When they were ready to attempt the sedation, Marcus approached the dragon slowly. She watched him come, her great head following his movement. When he was close enough, he gently placed his hand on her snout. Her scales were warm and surprisingly smooth. "We're going to help you," he said quietly. "But you're going to have to trust us completely." The dragon's eyes seemed to focus on his with startling intensity. Then, in a gesture that made Dr. Kim gasp, the creature slowly lowered her head until it rested on the cavern floor. It was a clear sign of submission and trust. "I've never seen anything like that," Dr. Kim whispered. "She understands. She actually understands what we're trying to do." The sedation process was tense but successful. As the dragon's breathing deepened and her massive form relaxed, Dr. Kim began the delicate work of examining her injuries. The wing breaks were even worse than they'd first appeared, with multiple fractures in the delicate bone structure. "This is going to take everything we've got," Dr. Kim said, laying out her surgical instruments. "And even then, I can't guarantee she ever fly again." "She live, though?" "If we do this right, and if she's strong enough to survive the trauma of surgery." "Marcus, are you sure about this? If the company finds out we use medical supplies and equipment on an alien creature without authorization, Marcus looked at the sleeping dragon and her 3 babies, who had curled up against their mother's warm side. The sight reminded him of something he'd seen many years ago. Back on Earth, an injured barn cat he'd found as a child, protecting her kittens despite her own pain. "Some things are more important than company policies," he said firmly. "Let's save her life." As Dr. Kim began the painstaking work of setting and stabilizing the dragon's broken wings, Marcus couldn't help but wonder what they were setting in motion. First contact with an intelligent alien species was supposed to happen under control. The dragon woke slowly, her massive eyelids fluttering as consciousness returned. Marcus had been sitting vigil beside her for 6 hours, watching her steady breathing and monitoring the makeshift medical equipment Dr. Kim had rigged to track her vital signs. The dragonlings had remained close to their mother throughout the procedure, occasionally chirping softly when her breathing changed, when her eyes fully opened. The dragon's first instinct was to try to spread her wings. The movement sent a tremor through her entire body, but the pain seemed less intense than before. Dr. Kim's work had been successful. Using a combination of titanium support rods, salvage from mining equipment, and biocompatible mesh from their medical supplies, she had stabilized both wing structures. "Easy, girl," Marcus said softly, placing his hand on her snout again. "You're going to need time to heal. Those wings won't support your weight for weeks, maybe months." The dragon's eyes focused on him with remarkable clarity. She seemed to understand his words, or at least his intent. Slowly, carefully, she lifted her great head and looked at her wings. The sight of the medical apparatus attached to them caused her to make a low, questioning sound. "Dr. Kim did an amazing job," Marcus explained, as if she could understand every word. "The bones will heal stronger than before, but you need to stay still and let them mend properly." One of the dragonlings, braver than its siblings, approached Marcus and rubbed against his leg like an oversized cat. The contact was warm and oddly comforting. The baby dragon's scales were softer than its mother's, with an almost velvet-like texture. "They're remarkable creatures," Dr. Kim said, emerging from the cavern entrance where she'd been monitoring communications with the mining station. "I've been studying the tissue samples we collected during surgery. Their cellular structure is unlike anything in our databases, but there are enough similarities to Earth reptiles that I could work with them." "Any word from the company?" Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "That's where things get complicated. I reported our discovery through proper channels 3 hours ago." The response was ... intense. Marcus felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Define intense. "Xenobiology teams are being dispatched from 3 different corporate research divisions. Government observers are being sent from Earth, and there's already talk of relocating the creatures to proper research facilities." The dragon seemed to sense the tension in their voices. Her head swiveled between Marcus and Dr. Kim, and her protective instincts kicked in. She gathered her dragonlings closer with gentle nudges from her snout. "They can't just take her away," Marcus said firmly. "She's not some lab specimen. She's a mother with babies who's been through enough trauma." "I agree, but we're not going to have much say in the matter. This is first contact with an intelligent alien species. The scientific and political implications are enormous." Marcus stood and walked to the cavern entrance, looking out at the mining operation that continued its normal routine. None of his crew knew exactly what they'd found, only that there had been some kind of discovery that required medical attention. He'd kept the details limited to protect both his people and the dragon. "How long before the teams arrive?" he asked. 48 hours for the first wave. Maybe 72 for the full contingent." Marcus made a decision that would change everything. "Then we have 48 hours to make sure she's strong enough to protect herself and her babies." "Marcus, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that in all the excitement about first contact and research opportunities, everyone's going to forget that we're dealing with a thinking, feeling creature who just wants to take care of her children. If she's going to survive what's coming, she needs to be at full strength." Over the next 2 days, Marcus threw himself into the dragon's care with the dedication of a man on a mission. He researched everything he could find about wing injuries in large flying creatures, adapted nutritional supplements for her unique physiology, and worked with Dr. Kim to develop a rehabilitation routine that would strengthen her healing bones without causing further damage. The dragon, who Marcus had begun calling Serafina in his mind, proved to be an incredibly intelligent and cooperative patient. She seemed to understand that the exercises Dr. Kim prescribed were helping her heal. When they used portable ultrasound equipment to show her the progress her bones were making, she studied the images with obvious comprehension. Her dragonlings, meanwhile, had adopted Marcus as an honorary member of their family. They followed him around the cavern, played with pieces of mining equipment he brought them as toys, and even tried to help when he worked on their mother's physical therapy. The smallest one, barely 3 feet long, had claimed Marcus's work vest as its favorite sleeping spot. "She's teaching them to trust humans," Dr. Kim observed on the second morning. "Look at how she reacts when they interact with us. She's not just allowing it, she's encouraging it." Marcus watched as Serafina gently pushed the middle dragonling toward him with her snout, when the baby seemed shy about accepting food from his hand. "She's planning for the future. She knows that after today, everything changes." "You really think she understands what's coming?" "I think she understands better than we do. Dragons are supposed to be wise in all the old stories, aren't they?" That afternoon, the first signs of the approaching teams appeared. Military shuttles began landing at the mining station, followed by scientists and government officials. Marcus could hear the increased radio chatter from his position in the cavern, and he knew their peaceful interlude was coming to an end. Dr. Kim returned from a meeting with the newly arrived officials looking grim. "They want to sedate her and transport her to the research station they're setting up in the Northern Valley. The dragonlings would be separated from her for study." "Over my dead body?" "Marcus, be reasonable. This is bigger than us now. The potential for advancing our understanding of xenobiology, of intelligence in non-human species, of treating a mother and her children like laboratory animals." Marcus's voice was hard. "I won't let that happen." That evening, as the sun set over Kepler 442b, Marcus sat with Serafina in the quiet of the cavern. The dragonlings were sleeping in a pile near their mother's tail, their soft breathing creating a gentle rhythm. Serafina herself was awake, her large eyes reflecting the glow of Marcus's lantern. "Tomorrow they're going to want to take you away," he said quietly. "I wish I could stop them, but I'm just a mining foreman. I don't have the authority to stand up to corporate research divisions and government agencies." Serafina made a low, rumbling sound that Marcus had come to recognize as her way of expressing complex thoughts. She reached out with her snout and gently touched his shoulder, a gesture he'd learned was her way of showing affection and gratitude. "You know what's funny?" Marcus continued. 3 days ago, my biggest worry was meeting this month's extraction quotas. Now I'm sitting in a cave talking to a dragon who understands every word I'm saying, trying to figure out how to protect her from my own species." The dragon tilted her head in a way that seemed almost questioning. Marcus got the distinct impression she was asking him something, but he couldn't quite grasp what. "What is it, girl? What are you trying to tell me?" Serafina stood slowly, careful not to disturb her sleeping babies. Her movements were much steadier now, the wing supports allowing her to balance properly. She walked to the far end of the cavern, then looked back at Marcus expectantly. Curious, Marcus followed her. In the deepest part of the cave, beyond where their lights had initially penetrated, Serafina stopped before what appeared to be a solid rock wall. She placed her snout against a specific point on the stone and applied gentle pressure. To Marcus's amazement, a section of the wall slid aside, revealing a hidden passage. Beyond the opening, faint light filtered down from somewhere far above. The passage was wide enough for Serafina to move through comfortably, and it angled upward at a steep but manageable grade. "A way out," Marcus breathed. "You've been showing me a way out." Seraphine's eyes held what Marcus could only describe as a pleading expression. She was asking for his help, not just with her immediate care, but with something much bigger. She wanted him to help her escape before the research teams could take her and her children. Marcus felt the weight of the decision, crushing down on him. Helping an intelligent alien creature escape from human researchers would end his career and probably land him in prison. But looking at Serafina and her sleeping babies, he realized he'd already made his choice days ago when he decided to save her life. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's get you out of here." The escape would have to be carefully planned. The research teams had already posted guards around the cavern entrance, and thermal sensors monitored the surrounding area. But they didn't know about the hidden passage. And Marcus suspected they underestimated both Seraphine's intelligence and her determination to protect her young. Marcus spent the next several hours studying the passage and working out the logistics. The tunnel led to a natural cave system that eventually opened onto a remote plateau several miles from the mining station. It would be a difficult journey for a dragon with healing wings, but it was possible. The biggest challenge would be timing. They'd need to move during the shift change when the guards. The escape began at 0600 hours, during the morning shift change when the research station was at its most chaotic. Marcus had spent the early hours preparing supplies and creating a carefully timed distraction. A small explosive charge, properly placed in an abandoned mining shaft 3 kilometers away, would simulate a cave-in and draw the attention of every emergency response team on the planet. Serafina seemed to understand the urgency. She had awakened her dragonlings before dawn and spent time communicating with them in their musical language. Marcus watched, fascinated, as the mother dragon appeared to be giving her babies specific instructions. The smallest one, Marcus's favorite, seemed reluctant to leave, repeatedly rubbing against his leg and making soft chirping sounds. "I know, little one," Marcus whispered, kneeling down to stroke the dragonling's soft scales. "I'll miss you too. But you need to stay with your mother where you'll be safe." Dr. Kim arrived just as Marcus was making his final preparations. She took one look at the scene and immediately understood what was happening. "You're helping her escape," she said, her voice a mixture of admiration and concern. "She's not a research specimen, Sarah. She's a mother who deserves to raise her children in freedom. The consequences for you will be severe. Career ending at minimum. Possibly criminal charges." Marcus shouldered a pack filled with medical supplies and emergency rations. "Some things are more important than careers." Dr. Kim was quiet for a long moment, watching as Serafina carefully tested her weight on her healing wings. The dragon was still unable to fly, but her mobility had improved dramatically over the past few days. "I'm coming with you," Dr. Kim announced suddenly. "Sarah, no. You don't need to. She's my patient too. And someone with medical training should be there to monitor her condition during the journey." Marcus felt a surge of gratitude for his colleague's loyalty. "It's going to be dangerous. The passage is steep and unstable in places. And once we're discovered missing, then we'd better not get caught." The hidden passage proved even more challenging than Marcus had anticipated. The initial section was relatively easy, but as they climbed higher into the mountain's interior, the path became treacherous. Serafina moved with careful determination, her dragonlings staying close to her massive form. Marcus and Dr. Kim used climbing equipment to secure the route ahead and provide assistance when the footing became uncertain. 3 hours into their journey, Marcus's comm unit crackled with emergency broadcasts. His distraction had worked perfectly. Every available team was responding to the simulated cave-in, leaving the research station minimally staffed. But it also meant they had a limited window before the deception was discovered. "How much farther?" Dr. Kim asked, breathing hard from the climb. Marcus consulted his portable scanner, which was mapping their route through the tunnel system. "Another 2 hours to the plateau if everything goes smoothly, and if it doesn't, then we find another way." As if summoned by their conversation about complications, a deep rumbling echoed through the passage behind them. The sound was definitely artificial, the distinctive whine of mining equipment being pushed to maximum power. "They're drilling through the cavern wall," Marcus realized. Someone must have discovered the hidden passage. Serafina had heard the sound too. Her massive head swiveled toward the noise, and she made a low, urgent sound to her dragonlings. The babies immediately clustered around their mother's feet, ready to move quickly. "Can we make it to the surface before they break through?" Dr. Kim asked. Marcus checked their position again. "It's going to be close." They pushed forward with renewed urgency, but progress remained frustratingly slow. The passage had been carved by water over millions of years, creating a winding route that switched back through solid rock. Seraphine's size made navigation difficult in the narrower sections, and her healing wings occasionally caught on protruding stones. The sound of drilling grew louder and more persistent. Marcus estimated that the pursuing team had already broken through the concealed entrance and was working to widen the passage enough for human-sized equipment. They had maybe 30 minutes before their pursuers reached them. "There!" Dr. Kim pointed ahead to where a faint breeze stirred the stale air of the tunnel. "Fresh air. We're close." The final section of the passage was the steepest yet, a natural chimney that rose at a 60-degree angle toward a circle of daylight far above. Marcus secured climbing ropes while Seraphina studied the ascent with obvious concern. Her wings, still supported by medical apparatus, would make the climb extremely difficult. "I can't ask her to attempt that," Dr. Kim said, looking at the nearly vertical climb. "One slip and she could undo all the healing that's taken place." Marcus was about to agree when Seraphina surprised them both. The dragon approached the base of the chimney and began to climb with fluid grace, her powerful claws finding purchase on the rock face. Her dragonlings followed, their smaller size and natural agility making the ascent look effortless. "She's stronger than we thought," Marcus said with admiration. "Come on, we can't let a dragon with broken wings show us up." The climb to the surface was harrowing but successful. When they finally emerged onto the windswept plateau, Marcus felt a surge of elation. They had done it. Seraphina and her babies were free. The plateau stretched for miles in every direction, covered in the purple grass, native to Kepler 442b and dotted with crystal formations that caught the morning light like scattered diamonds. It was beautiful, wild, and far from any human settlement. Seraphina stood at the edge of the plateau, testing the wind with her damaged wings. She couldn't fly yet, but Marcus could see the longing in her posture. This was where she belonged, in the open sky, not in a research facility. "The pursuit team will emerge soon," Dr. Kim reminded them. "What's the plan now?" Marcus had been thinking about that during the climb. "There's an old survey station about 10 miles north of here. Abandoned, but it should have basic shelter and communication equipment. We can—" He was interrupted by a sound unlike anything he'd ever heard. Seraphina had thrown back her great head and was producing a complex, musical call that echoed across the plateau. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, rising and falling in patterns that seemed almost like a song. "What is she doing?" Dr. Kim asked in wonder. "I think she's calling for help." They didn't have long to wait for an answer. From the distant mountains came an answering call, then another, and another. Within minutes, the sky began to darken as massive shapes approached from multiple directions. "More dragons," Marcus breathed. The arriving dragons were magnificent creatures, their scales gleaming in shades of gold, silver, and deep green. There were at least a dozen of them, possibly more, and they landed on the plateau with thunderous impacts that shook the ground. The largest one, a massive male with scales like burnished copper, approached Seraphina directly. The reunion was clearly emotional. The newcomer gently touched Seraphine's injured wings with his snout, making soft, concerned sounds. Other dragons gathered around the dragonlings, who were chittering excitedly at meeting their extended family. "We need to go," Dr. Kim said urgently. "I can hear the pursuit team in the tunnel. They'll be here any minute." Marcus nodded, but found himself reluctant to leave. After everything they'd been through together, saying goodbye to Seraphina felt like abandoning family. The dragon seemed to sense his feelings. She approached Marcus one final time and lowered her great head until she could look directly into his eyes. In that moment, Marcus felt a connection that transcended species barriers. There was gratitude there, and affection, but also something more: recognition, respect, understanding. Seraphina gently touched his forehead with her snout, a gesture that felt like a blessing. Then she stepped back and made a complex series of sounds that Marcus somehow understood was her way of saying goodbye. "Thank you," he whispered, "for trusting us, for letting us help." The sound of voices from the tunnel opening galvanized them into action. Marcus and Dr. Kim ran for the cover of the crystal formations just as the pursuit team emerged onto the plateau. But they were too late. The dragons were already taking to the air, their massive wings carrying them toward the distant mountains dot from their hiding place. Marcus watched Seraphina struggle into the sky, supported on either side by her rescuers. Her wings weren't strong enough for sustained flight yet, but with help, she could make the journey to wherever her people made their home. The pursuit team, led by a corporate security chief and a government xenobiologist, could only stand and watch helplessly as the dragons disappeared into the mountain ranges. All their careful plans for first contact and controlled study had literally flown away. "Sir," one of the security officers called to his chief, "we've detected 2 human life signs in the crystal field." Marcus and Dr. Kim exchanged glances. Their brief moment of triumph was about to end in arrest and interrogation. But as they prepared to surrender, something unexpected happened. One of the younger dragons, a sleek female with silver-blue scales, separated from the departing group and circled back toward the plateau. In her claws, she carried something that glinted in the sunlight. She dropped her burden near the tunnel entrance and called out in the musical dragon language before rejoining her companions. "What did she drop?" Dr. Kim asked. Marcus used his binoculars.